So let's turn on the inverter. Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's episode is a fairly simple one. I have a little bit of electrical that I want to do with some downtime today. Number one being this wall outlet over here, which is AC power. This is actually dead. There's no power going to it. I do have one on the back side which power is going to. Now the reason why that is because I have another outlet right here with USBs in it and two AC plugs. That goes to a 2000 watt inverter, which is located inside of this cabinet. The other one is a 500 watt inverter going to that plug, which is not wired in yet because it's wired in on the side. So all I got to do is just loosen off those wires, tap them into here, and then that'll be running on the countertop with two plugs for 500 watt, which is really easy to turn on and off. And that'll leave me a spare on the back side, which is the one I'm using right now, to do whatever else if I choose to have more plugs, which realistically I don't think I will. And then the other part of this project is adding another 12 volt outlet here. This one actually has a readout for the voltage coming off of the battery, which is going to be piggybacked off the actual starter battery of the van. And this has two USB quick charge ports with an on off. And then like I said, there is a LED display in the center there, which tell me the battery voltage, which is really interesting because if I'm parked here and I happen to be turning things on using that battery with the engine's not running, I can read out the voltage without killing my starter battery. So, very simple day today. Let's get started. All right, so first things first, everybody living in a van or a vehicle has a toolbox. And I've got my little toolbox here that I keep inside. I've already taken the faceplate off that outlet, so looking like it's a Phillips screw to remove it from the wall. So I'll pull that, get it removed from the wall, and then making sure the inverter is turned off. I will then take one lead off at a time, mark where it is, and then basically run it behind the cabinet into that outlet, get everything secured, get the outlet put back into the wall, and then give it a test run. So to give you guys another look really close, this is the outlet that I want to power up. This is the outlet right now that has the power. So I got to pull that off. Now behind here is the brains of the operation. I've got all the wires to this AC outlet, which goes to a 2000 watt inverter. I've then got my charge controller, display screen, diesel heater right here, the on-off switch to turn on the inverter for that. And then the outlet down here, which we're going to be using. So I got to snake the wires up behind this cabinetry right into these little terminals. Super easy. And coming down inside of here, which I've got partially cleaned out, you guys can see the 2000 watt inverter here and the 500 watt inverter there. The wires right there, yellow, red, and black, are actually just cut from an extension cord. So that extension cord plugs into the inverter. That is going to stay there, but those wires are going to go up top and get tied into this guy right here. All right guys, so just looking at this outlet, the wires look like it might actually be long enough to reach, fingers crossed. They're braided right now. I may actually unbraid them just to have a little bit more room. But here you guys can see I actually removed the entire outlet off the wall, and there's the plug. You guys can see the colors in the back. That is the exact same outlet as the one that was dead, basically left with no power. So I'm going to see if this will reach, and then I'll just swap out the outlet itself instead of undoing the wires and putting them in the outlet. Just makes no sense. So I'm going to see if this will reach. If this reaches, this will be super fast and super quick to move. It's just a relocation, that's all it is. Same power output, same everything, just relocated. So let's see if this will fit. Okay, right away a problem. It'll fit, but I do actually have to undo the wires because both the socket and the plug are too big to fit in between the van wall and this cabinet. So I do have to undo it, snake those wires up. Not a big problem, but it will reach. All right, so before I take the wires off of this outlet, I did just take a picture of where the wires are located on this as it's going back on this. Just want to make sure that I'm going to know where they go so I don't mess that up. So just going to unscrew all these screws, take the wires off. I always recommend taking a picture of this kind of stuff because you never know if you're going to get it mixed up, as I think most of us have in the past. So picture in the phone, undo these. I may unbraid it too just a little bit just to make sure it's going to reach. I don't want to come up short and then have to undo the whole thing all over again and repeat that process. So I'll unbraid some of these wires. I do have electrical tape in here as well. I mean, I think all of us have electrical tape and basic tools with us in our vehicles. Even when I'm just overlanding in the Jeep or the truck or whatever, I always have an extensive toolbox and parts and things like that just to do some repairs on the trail, because when you're out there alone, there's no one else to help you. You got to figure it out on your own. So that's all undone. There is a little piece of electrical tape here. Undo this. Actually, you know what? Let me just see if it's going to no, it's not going to fit. We'll definitely have to unbraid it and then jam it in there. So, should mention that I did purchase this van already built out. I know a lot of the viewers are probably confused, thinking, well, don't you know your van? Well, I actually did not build this van. A subscriber actually had it, and we met up, and he was planning on moving to another province and how to get rid of the van, so everything lined up and it was nice. So yeah, here we are. So I have retrofitted a lot of different things in the van. I've built new cabinets. I've done a couple things here and there, little mods. Extensively, there will be more changes coming to the outside of the van. Right now, I mean, anytime you buy a new vehicle or a vehicle new to you, you should really drive it to find out what's going to fail or what's going to go wrong with it before changing a whole bunch of aesthetic things, because it's a pretty easy way to empty out your bank account on things that don't need to be fixed. And then when you come across something that does need to be fixed, you're stuck. So it's pretty much past its preliminary stages. Everything has been really, really good. Knock on wood. So that's the deal with what's going on right now. Just kind of moving things around, retrofitting things, you know, adding the light strips and the light bars and all that stuff. Just kind of putting my touch on it. So yeah, so that's why I'm still kind of going through some things that I'm not 100% sure of, because realistically I'm not. I've got to really look at what that person did when they built the van and why they built it that way to suit their needs, and then retrofit it to better fit my needs and my lifestyle as well. So 3 leads undone. Let's get this plug in there, run them up through, and hopefully everything will go fine. Alright, so to make this installation far easier, I just drilled a large hole in between these 2 metal brackets so the wires coming up will be protected. Reason for doing that is snaking the wires behind here in this crack is almost impossible because they have these ends that are attached to them, making it non-bendable, so it won't actually bend to the contour like the wire will to get through that crack. So just drilled a tiny little hole right there, pass them up through there. There'll be a little bit more cable slack, which will actually be really good because when this opens down, there'll be a little bit of slack there for the cable, so I won't be pulling on it. So that is going to be very simple, and I think a lot smarter drilling a small hole. All right, so that went really well, actually. It's not plugged in right now just in case, you know, something goes wrong and the inverter bumps on or whatever. So those wires are totally dead right now. Just gonna open my phone to look at the photo that I took to line these wires up properly again. So it looks like yellow was this guy. And like I was saying, guys, super simple to mess this up. So I always recommend taking a picture if you're not sure. And especially with building builds that someone else already built. Lost my screwdriver again. I don't know how I always manage to lose things. Like, it's in my hand 2 seconds and then it's gone. Like, ridiculous. Gone. Should be medicated. But yeah, if you're building a build that somebody else started, it may be wise to take a lot of photos, because you never know how that person wired it in or why they wired it in a specific way that may be different how you would normally do it. Yeah, just smarter that way, in my personal opinion. So that guy's screwed in there nice and tight. I do have to pass the outlet through now and do the other wires, otherwise I won't be able to bend through that contour when I go and close it. So popping up this again, like I said, photos are great for a multitude of things, especially dealing with this literally hands-on. Very, very simple. The reason why I'm moving this, guys, I should probably mention that while I'm doing it. It's an annoyance. I have a plug on the side of my bed, which I showed you, the one that I'm removing. It's like right where my face is, and I don't really see a need for a plug to be there. Sure, it's great as a backup, but honestly, I don't pull that much AC. I've got 2 outlets right here, AC on a 2000 watt inverter, and then I've got 2 right now that I'm screwing in on a 500 watt inverter AC. Now, to be totally fair, I don't really use a whole lot of AC power, and I also have the Jackery 2000 Pro battery unit in here. So I have a power station in here as well that also has an inverter and AC on it, and can be charged while I'm driving via 12 volt out of the cigarette lighter, which we're going to be installing a second one today, and that's the main reason for that. But I don't find myself using a whole lot of AC power. I primarily use DC items. I mean, all the lighting in the van's DC. The biggest AC items, I guess, that I would use would be like the air fryer. Can't even really think of anything off the top of my head. Air fryer, batteries, so like charging up my DSLR batteries and a drone battery, I need AC power. But realistically, there are 12 volt chargers out there to charge those batteries as well. If you want to go down that road, I already have the AC ones and they work great, so why not continue using them, right? But yeah, it just seems smarter for me to not use that much AC power. The reason for that, if you're new to van life or new to builds or anything like that, AC power burns more electricity. It's minute, but it does burn more power because it has to convert the DC, which is direct current, into AC, which is alternative current. So there is a little bit of power draw. So if you do leave your inverter turned on and you leave your van for a day or two and the inverter's still on, even though nothing's plugged into it, it is still going to drain your battery because it's still converting that power. Even though you're not pulling and using a huge draw of it, it is still converting the power. So DC is the way to go. So plug this back in here. It's a little tricky, actually. Hard to get that plug in there. Come on. Okay. That's plugged in. Now I was just saying I don't have, oh, here's a, actually, you know what? I have all my tattoo gear in the van right now for doing tattoos on the road, and I actually have my little portable tattoo lamp. So let's turn on the inverter. Press and hold this button. It's on. So that is the on off button. I have to lift this up, turn it on. There's no individual on off like my 2000 watt. And then if I plug this in here, flick it on, look at that. We got power. So that outlet works. Try the bottom one to make sure that works. It works. Very simple project, just to move that outlet. Super fast, super simple. Like I said, that is on AC, so we do have to turn the inverter off. The one thing that I do have that's off, the one thing that I do have plugged into there, got wood shavings down there, is my LED light strips. I plug it in on the side and super sleek, out of the way. It does impede this from opening, like once it hits there, but realistically it's a stopper, so it doesn't actually impede me from opening it. It just won't open 100%. It's like 98%, which is fine. So if I wanted more, I just unplug it, open it all the way, not a big deal. That plug's out of the way, doing its thing. So yeah, that'll work great, just like that. I can leave that plugged in because the inverter's off. Get all my stuff packed and back into here. As for this other outlet, I'm actually just going to save it as a spare. I'll tuck it underneath the bed where I put most of my tool storage. And yeah, it'll be there for a spare, just in case something happens or I want to move an outlet somewhere else. Maybe in the wintertime I'm finding myself in the van a little bit more, doing more AC. So my computer that's in the van, if you guys missed that build, I do have a computer in here. That runs off of AC. The monitor runs off of a USB-C. Obviously I could put that USB-C into a block and run it off of AC, or I could put it into a battery unit or a DC outlet, which I have all over the van. So I have this little small USB and USB-C DC, just positive and negative. That actually runs the monitor. I have one of these wired in over here behind me. That's what I plug into there. So I may wire this one in, maybe, I don't know. I might wire this one in over here and mount it here another day. That way I have a real quick plug in for charging a phone, because this is USB or USB-C. It is quick charge as well. And have it on constant power, so it's always on, just like the one behind me. Even if I park the van for a week, there will always be power to this. It does have a tiny, tiny little blue LED light on there to show you like where it is so you can find it in the dark. That will not kill my battery. I mean, it could run for a month and it won't kill my battery. But keeping in mind that it is constant power off of these batteries down here, not my starter battery. Not a big deal because my solar controller is always pulling in solar off the roof. Even right now, I'm at 13.6 volts. I am fully charged. So not worried about that, but I may mount this over here at some point directly off the fuse is what I'll do. Because I have my fuse panel down here. I'll run it to a fuse that is run to basically power that over there. So I'm going to piggyback off the fuse instead of running a wire. And then mount this in here. I'll have to drill a hole and all that fun stuff. But right now that project's done, so I'm going to jump up in the front of the van and take this guy. I do have a hole saw, so I'm going to have to drill a hole in the dash, and smartly, not so smartly, threw it on the floor. Smartly, last time I mounted two 12 volts in the front of the dash, I actually left a third lead, positive and negative, just vacant underneath the dash, knowing I was going to add another one at a later date, and today is that later date. So I'm going to get that up front, get the hole saw kit, and get everything mounted. And then I'll have another plug for my refrigerator. That way I do not have to plug my refrigerator into the Jackery, killing the Jackery as I'm driving. The reason why I would do that is because my rear view mirror is actually a camera. As you guys can see, you can't see out the back. So my rear view mirror is a 12 volt powered mirror, TV screen. That needs to be plugged in when I'm in the city. But that means I need to unplug my fridge and plug it in the battery and swap plugs here and there. It just makes it much easier just to plug both of them in at the front of the van. And then leave it, and then the Jackery will be fully charged when I get to camp. So I'm not pulling off my home batteries, which is 200 amp hours. Yeah, so jump up front, get that hole drilled, get that all wired in, and button up this project. All right, so climbing in to the front seat. It's a little bit messy from driving all over the place. Oh, I should mention my son. It was recently Father's Day. Oh yeah. So I have to put that in the back of the van so it does not get destroyed, which is the reason why it's there right now. So looking at the front of the van, if you guys can make out what's going on here. So this plug here is dual USB. We'll get these cords out of the way now, so I'm not going to be tripping over them. But this USB I put in here, which actually just replaced the factory 12 volt because it was just a boring 12 volt. There wasn't anything fancy about it. So this one has an on-off, quick charge 3.0, both of them, plus it has a USB-C, which is a PD charger, built in there as well. And then over here, I mounted a brand new 12 volt because the other one was kind of cruddy and broken. So I have this huge area here on these vans, which is very nice to put in a large panel. I have plans for this, so I'm not going to put a large panel in. So what I'm thinking is our 12 volt here. I'd like to sneak it in here, but something tells me it's not going to, I mean, it might fit, but there is a bit of a contour here preventing it from fitting really nicely. So I'm just kind of looking like where else could it go? So I'm not sure. Oh, wait a minute. So this is the wrong one. Sorry. Jumping the gun here. I'm all over the place today. This is another USB. I have another 12 volt in the back. One of these guys. So I got to find a spot for that. But this one in my hand right now is obviously the USB. I'm all over the place right now. So this has got to get mounted up here somewhere. So I'm going to figure out where that's going to go. I'm not 100% sure. It's the same size as the 12 volts, so that's the reason why I'm holding this, kind of looking around. I could do like a stack of them here, which would be silly because there'll be wires all over the place. And I only need one more 12 volt, which is this guy right here. I don't actually need more USBs, but it is nice to have for charging camera batteries on the go, because this will be wired directly to the van battery and not my 200 amp hours in the rear for the home batteries. So that's the reason why I like having all this up here. I could plug in all kinds of stuff while I'm driving, charge everything, and then not have to resort to my stored power when the engine is off. Alright, so that'll fit in there nicely. I have the retaining lock ring in the back of the van, so that'll slide in, and then I'll have to reach behind to twist that lock on there, and that'll put the USBs on the same side. The 12 volt, I got a story about that. Okay, so the 12 volt plug that I wanted to install is not in the van right now. It's actually in my Jeep. I know I was saying 12 volt plug. This is the dual USB. It's just going in today. The 12 volt I'm going to mount in the same location, but on the other side, on the driver's side. So I'll have two 12 volts over there, and then the passenger side will have two of these. I thought I had the other one with me today. I guess I don't. So I'm going to be installing this, but the other one will be installed the exact same way. Yeah, so kind of losing my mind a little bit. But this looked great. Right there like that. Open up the door, level it out. Like I said, I do have to put this retaining ring on there in the back because this is all threaded to lock it on. And yeah, that'll be good. So down here, I did leave two wire leads taped right from the battery. So these are live, but they're separated. So I do have to run that up in through to the hole, wire this in, and then put that in the back with the retaining ring. I'm going to run the wires through the retaining ring first because I've done that many times where I've got it wired up and the ring's sitting there on my lap. And then I have to unwire it all, put the ring on. Yeah, it's a process. So look at that wired in there. As you guys can see, this one is lit up blue. This one's actually touch. So you just touch it and it turns off. You touch it again, turns on. This one actually has, if you guys can hear that, a solid click. Plus it has the voltage readout in the center, which you guys can't see right now because there's no power to it. But it does have a voltmeter. So I'll go ahead and get this wired in, and then we'll have a look at what it looks like, get a readout on the battery, give it a test run, and I'll have to do the other 12 volt, this guy, another day. Unfortunately, I don't have that with me, but yeah, same process. So let's get this in there. Hoping I can get that wire snaked through here blindly without having to put another wire through there to catch it, like a little coat hanger. Oh, it's coming. Oh yeah, there it is. All right. So, first thing, retaining ring. No, I just messed up. Okay. I do this every time. First thing, retaining ring. And then snake the wire through. Do this again. All the way up. Oh, that one was actually quicker. Okay, that's good. Now, this is live. I'm not going to disconnect it from the battery. I'm just going to be very careful with how I'm working with this. It's only 12 volt. I mean, I'm not going to get electrocuted. I just don't want to pop a fuse or anything. So I'm going to separate these. I've got my cable strippers here. So we'll do the negative one first, actually. Negative terminal seems to be the smarter one to do first. Strip that back. Find the negative, which is clearly marked on the back of this 12 volt. So I like separating my wires in like a little Y fashion. You can get the quick connects where they just snap on and they're covered. I don't have them here today, and honestly I don't need them. You just put this through and basically just twist it together, and I put electrical tape on the back of it. Like I said, guys, it's 12 volt. Sure, if you want to get down to the nitty gritty and worry about fires here and there and all your connections going to come loose, just put the connection on tight. It's fairly simple. So pop that in there like that. Give it a twist around. I've done this so many times on so many vehicles and it's worked out totally fine. If you don't have the little plastic clips, which, I mean, who cares? So get this put on here like that, and I'm going to wrap it very tightly with electrical tape. Just because I do go down bumpy roads off-road and I don't want this shaking loose. And I've actually done this to all my trucks, Jeeps, all vehicles that I've had in my lifetime, and I've never had an issue. So yeah, we'll get this taped in there, wrapped in. The hardest part about this whole thing is actually getting the retaining ring screwed on the back side, because this particular build I'm going to have to snap this plastic off and reach my hand in there and spin it from the front, because I won't be able to turn it from the back. So that's the only real difficult part about doing this. It's kind of a pain in the butt. I'm not going to film that part because it'll probably be a little stressful. So strip that off. Here's the positive lead. Super simple. I know I watch all kinds of YouTube videos and I see people go way over in depth about this stuff. It is super simple. It's just positive, negative. Twist it, tie it, pop it on, bam, done. I see all these kind of Instagram van builds is what I call them. Everyone getting the proper tape, the proper this, the proper that. And it's like, man, just wire it. Just wire it in there. Because when you're out in the woods, you don't have a Home Depot to get all the nice fancy tools and fancy this and that. And you've got to fix your vehicle in the bush. So that's where those people will most likely fail, is ingenuity and how to fix things when you're not in a city and you're out in the woods by yourself. That's where street smarts and wood smarts and just experience comes in. So that's how I like to do it. It's fast, it's simple, and it definitely works. So I've got that twisted on there, and already it's wired up. So running at 12.6 volts right now. Could plug in a cord, but I don't even have my phone. Oh no, I do have my phone. Okay, so you guys can make that out. It's going to flash on the screen because of the frame rate, but it's not flashing in real life. So we'll plug in USB, quick charge. My phone is off. I'll plug it in, and I just felt it vibrate, charging. I know you guys can't see that right now, but it does say it's charging. 68%, 1 hour, 10 minutes until fully full. So it is quick charging because I know my phone, 68%, 1 hour. That is about the time it takes to charge. So everything's wired up right now. It is working. I'm going to tape off this other terminal and then get that retaining ring popped in there, and then this project is done. Alright, so I had to take out two 10 mil bolts to remove that dash panel so I can actually get my hand in behind. There's just not enough room in there to put that retaining screw on there. So now that I've got that ripped off, I'll actually be able to get in there. Interesting, I did find the wires to the old 12 volt cigarette lighter, which was not working. That's why, because the wires were not connected. The socket was all corroded anyway, so I believe the last owner probably just disconnected it anyways. But the wires are in there, which is interesting because that means they're still live. They're taped off, but they're live, so that could be a possible lead in the future to tap into for more power. But for now, I'm going to get that retaining ring screwed on there and get that dash panel put back in. This thing's got to go on there perfectly, otherwise it'll be cross-threaded. I can't see it, but I can feel it, and it's not wanting to go. Always a pain in the butt. You got to be on there perfect because the plastic just won't allow it to thread on. Like I said, can't see anything, but I could feel it. And what I could feel is it's not agreeing. There's no tape on there, so it is just the thread. And it threads both ends, so it'll definitely go on. It's just got to be perfectly lined up with that thread. So I'm back threading it on purpose, waiting for it to skip, and then when it skips, then I can go forward. Then I know those threads are lined up. Okay, there it goes. It's tight. Wow, that's not fun. Holy. Okay, starting to... Okay, now it's going. Still got a wrench on it though. Not a fun spot. That's why I was saying this, without taking this dash panel off, this would be a nightmare. So while I'm here doing this, the one right next to it, the other 12 volt or the other USB port, that one I put in the factory hole. I actually just slammed it in there. There's no retaining ring on that one. It's just slammed in there. The hole that it went in was like a fraction too small, so it's a really solidly tight fit. This one, my hole saw was a little bit bigger. That's the smallest hole saw that I had. Oh, crank that on there tight. So I have to put the retaining ring on. So there we go. I think that's straight. I put the little lid flopping downwards because this one kind of annoys me. Like I said, there's no retaining ring on this one, so I can't actually rotate it down. I could cut it off, I guess, if I really wanted to, but this one works totally fine. Press it on, 12.6 volts. We can read it through the little window there to keep the dust out. And that is a finished port. And I'm going to rotate it. There we go. Tiny bit. So that is finished. Now I've got to get the dash put back together. All right, guys. So that was a success. That is mounted in there really nice and clean with the on-off button. Really nice. Everything's looking good up here as far as charging now. I'll be able to charge everything on the go. When I'm driving by myself, Boomer typically sits in the back. But if he is in the front, I still have room on the seat to lay everything out and just plug all the cords to it. So as you guys can see right now, like I was saying, I'm in the passenger seat. So we've got two outlets here, which there's one PD. Now there's 4 quick charge USBs in total. Both of these panels have on off. Right now, like I said, 12.6 volts to the starter battery. So I know we're good there to crank. One 12 volt over here. I'm going to do the same and put another 12 volt right next to it. That way I could plug in my rear view mirror, which is right here. That gets plugged in and that turns on and it stays on, which is another reason why I constantly plug and unplug it, plug and unplug it. That stays on. So right now, looking at the mirror, it just powered on. So I unplugged that quite a bit. These cords always live in here, so I'm just going to get these plugged back in. These white ones, I like using the white cords because they're easier to see and they don't get tangled up like the black cords do, for me anyways, being able to visually see that, especially driving at night. So yeah, very, very simple project. Now the reason why I filmed this, because this for me is kind of like a foolish, silly video, because I've been doing this all my life. For those who are going to wonder, geez, how'd you do that? Or does this product work good? Or what would you recommend? That's why I like filming all of these videos, because at some point someone's going to say, hey, what did you use for that? If I'm plugging something in, someone's going to say, what outlet is that? I'll revert them back to this video. So back of the van is wired. AC is now moved over to the 500 watt inverter, which is great. The 2000 watt inverter that I have, the fan in it's really loud. So when I turn that on, I power my microwave, my computer, things that I'm using like not for a long period of time. The computer, if I'm doing like a quick dump of files, I don't care if it's loud, but if I'm using my computer to edit photos, I'll plug my computer into the Jackery and use that because it's silent. My 500 watt inverter is dead silent. So I can plug whatever in there. So if I'm running lights for like 5 hours, I'll plug it in there, super quiet. So that was really important for me to move that and streamline everything, as well as up here. Now I did mention this panel here. I do have plans for that. I'm not going to say what just yet, but I do have big plans for that, so stay tuned for that. Other than that, that's it that I got all here for you guys today on this video. So peace out. I'll see you in the next one.